The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Ah, there it is. You tuned into the Farron Dozier Show on nbradio.us, Pitch Talk Edition, and Live Sports. Catch me here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, only on nbradio.us. Shout out. How'd I do? Was that a good take? That might be. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh,
too,
man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Seen her out in LA playing with the band. In Carolina, dancing on the sand. She's a star that's slipping through my hands, like the ones that fell on Alabama. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She'll get you high as the Colorado sky. sight. As tough as Texas, and brother, she just might knock you to the ground if you start a fight. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She'll wait there in the harbor, holding up her light. She'll bring a fallen soldier home underneath her stripes. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She's red, white, and blue.
All right. A good evening and welcome to the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. I'm your host, Farron Dozier. Thank you for tuning and listening in today. As always, we have a very important show for you right here on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Where are we going to start at today? Well, let's start with the PSA. If you're just tuning in, I played my public service announcement for sickle cell trait awareness. Sickle cell trait is very, very, very important to me because of my inherited gene and of my collapsing in the military. So that has become one of the key points of my life as far as my what's next and advocating for sickle cell trait. There are so many known health and risk factors to sickle cell trait, and a lot of those conversations just have not been had. And so, I realized that, God gave me that inherited gene in my mother's womb to deliver a message, right? So for my brothers and sisters at arms, whether you're serving currently or you are retired or you're out of the military, one of the biggest things we miss is that camaraderie and what's next. And looking to figure out what's next in life really can be sometimes challenging for some if you're not prepared or whatever that is. I myself, I was not prepared for that transition from my medical retirement. However, this is where we are, right in front of you today, still at it, being and making a difference in life and being the difference at times. So today we're just going to have a talk. I titled this conversation, You versus You. That's capital YOU versus lowercase YOU. And for me, that is a conversation that is directly connected to me, not just you, but me. And the you versus you for me is my spirit being, and then my subconscious mind. And for me, there is the battle, right? And so there are some things that I discovered in my courses this month, personal development classes, and I want to just share with you just one of those aspects on how I was able to become vulnerable after 41 years. That's right, 41 years I have been living, avoiding shame and embarrassment and disappointment, right? And not being vulnerable. And we hear this conversation around men, uh, boys, and how we grow up and how we're trained and what we're taught how not to be or what to be, and all these different things that we talk about, that we say men, we focus on men. Well, that's true. As men, we do grow up in many different experiences, different things that occur to us in life, and a lot of times for myself, I realize that it's not what happened to me, it's actually what I made it mean about me. And when you can understand that perception from that perspective or that interpretation, that it's not what happened, is what I made it mean about me. That was really the source of how I'm even talking to you today, because I had to go back and really tell the truth to myself and do this work. All this stuff that I'm talking to you about was triggered from my sickle cell trait of, exertion. Like, prior to that exertion, I was in the military. I was living life. I was doing what I was doing, and being who I was being, and producing results that I thought I wanted to produce, because that's just the way that life was. And being that the way life was, I always had these thoughts in my head. I always had these stories in my head. I was always trying to wonder why I remember these different episodes of my life, why these thoughts were so significant. Um, Not really emotionally intelligent enough to understand that I was having anxiety, or that I was having depression, or any of that. Like, I just wasn't. It was just, that's just life, right? It's life, and this is how you deal with it. And sometimes I would tell a lie just to get out of stuff, and there are things that we do as people. None of us escape those conversations, right? But it wasn't until that day that I collapsed in the military, and my life, just everything changed. Everything changed from that sickle cell trait exertion with the rhabdomyolysis, and my career slowly came to an end, and I found myself just trying to figure out, why do I feel like life is over? Why do I feel like, that I don't want to be around anymore? Like, I've never felt that before, right? And just going through those processes, just going through that experience, being in those, we language it as dark spaces. Everybody has their words on how they describe their emotional state. And mine was, it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. And one of the biggest things, that set me on track was this personal development education that I'm in right now for the last 15 years. I was doing that before I went to the VA, paying for that out of my own pocket, just because I didn't feel like I fit in the VA. I'm not a combat veteran. No, I was deployed in country training our soldiers and Iraqi soldiers together when they were doing all the attacking the convoys and the mechanics, if you remember that era. And so we were brought in to train and develop those soldiers that were going overseas, but not a combat veteran. No, I wanted to go. I did. But the way that I was positioned in my unit as third in charge, I was not able to just volunteer to go unless they took the whole unit. And I equate that to my mom's prayers, because it seems like every time I transferred to another unit, I either just missed that deployment, or I was unable to volunteer and go myself. So that was difficult. That's difficult because we joined the military, we trained all these years to be prepared for that moment, right? To get that call, and then you don't get that call, which for some of us, we may not tell the truth about that, but that is something that I still deal with because you want to participate fully. And then I looked at it from another perspective. Most recently, I had gave my life to death at 19 years old. So I didn't think about it at the time. I wasn't afraid to die. I wasn't, none of that was in the forefront of my mind. It wasn't until after service, until after I started peeling off these layers of this identity of a soldier, that I discovered that, yeah, I had a lot of stuff going on in here. and the military teaches us how to turn it on as a description, but do they teach us how to turn it off? And sometimes we spend the rest of our life, for some of us, trying to figure out how to turn that off. And just being able to now look back at my career in the space that I'm in today, it didn't just take me back to my military career. It took me back to even prior service, prior to who Farron was as a young child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and then as an adult, right? And so one of the things I want to talk about today is what I discovered most recently is the being vulnerable. And that was a decision that I made at age 14. And it was just, a heartbreak. The Music Marks That Place in Time, the soundtrack to life song for that was Owner of a Lonely Heart. And I could play that today. And it takes me back to those moments of being 14 years old and having those experiences of, the moment I gave up not being vulnerable. Right. And to discover that 41 years later, to really get into the layers of what it looks like, or what it looked like to not be vulnerable. The biggest part of it, I would say, was definitely self-sabotaging. Definitely sabotaged a lot of relationships because I wasn't vulnerable. I could describe it having one foot in, one foot out in relationships. Very guarded, very personal, very private, because I just refused to express myself. I refused to be put in the situation that I was going to be heartbroken. But guess what? I would still end up being heartbroken, because you can't avoid that. And a lot of it was because of my behavior, right? And so we live resisting being this way to not look bad or to look good, but then you still end up looking bad because you're still in a reverse or in a different version, being that person that you don't want to be. So the more that I said I didn't want to be vulnerable, the more that I wanted to be in a relationship. But then the moment that I felt like I couldn't be vulnerable, or I felt like I had to defend myself, I would. I'm a great defender at that. Great relationship defender. Nothing I'm proud of, but it was a survival skill from a mind of a 14-year-old. And so to be able to have the space and have the principles and have the skills to look back in time and to say, you know what? There's some stories in my mind that I don't know if they're the truth, if they're real, if they are my imagination, or we call them traumas. We got all kind of names for them today. So you got to figure out how you label your emotional state. But, at this age I am today at 55 and looking back 41 years, it was tough. It was tough. It was very hurtful. Again, avoiding being embarrassed. I mean, can you imagine, you're dating a girl in junior high school, and then you break up, and then you've got to see her with the new guy, and then all your friends know that was your girl at some point. Like, do y'all know what that feels? Hello, am I the only one? Do y'all know how that feels? Yeah. But it's not just what happened, it was what I made it mean. That's the key part. It's not what happened, it's what I made it mean. And that honestly wasn't the first time. When I look back at growing up as a child in the neighborhood, you play house, you have girlfriends in your neighborhood, and those things happen even earlier. I say 14, but I could look back around 8 years old, right? I could look back in kindergarten and I had a crush on a little girl in my kindergarten. Like, you know, and we do this with our children. We laugh and be like, oh, you got a girlfriend? Now that's her. Now you got a boyfriend. Like little children. Like, why are we doing that? Why? I don't know. But that's what happens. So I could go back to many occasions of wanting to have a girlfriend, and then, you know, the embarrassment or the shame or the disappointment or whatever that is. So it wasn't that girl's fault, right? As though I blamed her for 41 years. It wasn't her fault, right? But to be able to look back at today and discover who I was being, it wasn't just what I was doing to people, to relationships, but it's who I was being. And I was being guarded. I did not want to feel that pain again from 14. But it wasn't until this most recent course that I was in, and this is the fourth time I've taken this actual course in that education, that it came around in the cycles of doing seminars, right? So this is the fourth time in 15 years that one popped up again in rotation. And I came into it this year like it was the first time. Like, yeah, I've taken that class before. I know what I got from the previous episodes, from the previous courses, what I discovered, who I became, the freedom, the clarity, the understanding, the revelations. But, you know, when you take a class, sometimes you have to be able to approach it like it's the first time. And I've been able to do that and be that kind of person that, you know what, I'm doing this for the first time, and I'm going to see what turns out. And this time around, on the fourth time, I was able to discover just what I resist in life. There's a saying that says, what you resist persists, right? So whatever your mind resists in life, the more it persists, because your mind is always focused on it. It's always looking out for that thing. It's always reminding you, oh yeah, look out for that. Oh yeah, remember that. Oh yeah, remember that last time. Oh yeah, this looks like that one time again. Oh yeah, like that's your brain. That's the mind. It's designed to keep us safe, to survive life. It does an excellent job. It does an excellent job. However, in some conversations, in some episodes, in some areas of life, it does not help us at all. It doesn't help us. We think it helps us, but it doesn't. It keeps us safe. But do you want to play life safe? No, of course not. We want to have risk. We want to have relationships. We want to have friends. We want to go places. We want to do things. We want to experience life on the outside. But inside of us, there's a totally different war going on. If you describe it as a war, there is a battle. There's a spiritual battle. There's this worldly battle. There's this battle in your mind. And I was able to look at what I was resisting in life. And some of the things that I resisted in life actually was stuff that I was hurting from. I was actually hurting because I resisted it. And so because I resisted the hurt, it was consistent. It was always there. It persisted. I don't know if you understand that. But what I resisted, because I always kept my mind on it in the background, that it persisted as an issue, as a concern, as a fear, as a worry, am I going to be embarrassed again? Am I going to be ashamed again? Am I going to be left disappointed again? And not disappointed just in the person, but in myself. And so the ability to tell the truth, the ability to be willing to tell the truth, I believe that's number one. And there was at some space of that education that I was willing to tell the truth to myself about myself. I felt like I was at rock bottom. You know, when it feels like to be, have you ever felt rock bottom? Some people feel like they hit a brick wall. I felt like I was at rock bottom. And, you know, being introduced to that class, taking that class, and being willing to participate in that class just shed light on another perception of life that I being used by those principles, I could tell the truth that what I made up wasn't the truth. See, we have what we call our truth, our reality, and then there's the reality that happens, or the truth that happens. But you could have 5 people that see the same thing and have 5 different truths. Now that's not right or wrong or good or bad, but it does get in the way, especially because those are 5 people. And people have their own perceptions, their own interpretations. They have their own action patterns and memory patterns and perception patterns. And if it looks like a duck, before they even see it, is, oh, that's a duck, and they react to it and they realize, oh shoot, that wasn't a duck. Like, can you imagine being in the dark? Imagine you're in the dark in the jungles and you see this image come across and you're like, oh, is that a horse? No, and you realize it's a zebra. Why? Because in the dark, a horse and a zebra looks the same. Right? So, yeah, we may say if it's a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Could be. But then you got to understand the perception, the interpretation, and the power of the brain. And it might be a horse or it might be a zebra if you don't see those stripes. Right? And so putting my life in those conversations, putting my life in this curriculum this time around, I was able to put myself in the conversation like it was the first time. And I answered the questions that the coach asked. And she asked, what are you resisting? And, you know, I struggled at first because it's like, what am I resisting? And so, you know, in this education, they guide you. They don't give you the answer because, see, the value of a lot of personal development classes, even with mental health classes, is not for them to give you the answer to what your problem is. If you're willing to do the work, you discover it, and no one can take that away. Right? So even in the education that we talk about, that we teach from, we don't give answers. It's like, remember when you learn how to walk? If you can remember, or have you seen your nieces or your brothers or sisters for that first time they learn how to walk, that they got up on their own and started walking without any help? What do we call that? We call that balance. So imagine when you discover what that fracture is, when you discover what that trauma is, when you discover what that mental breakdown, that emotional, whatever that is, when you discover it for yourself, no one told you. You got that for yourself. And that's like when we got balance. When I got balance, I've never lost it. And I've been walking for 55 years. So however many years, 52 years, 51 years, 54, whatever age I started walking, the moment that I stood up on my own and got balance, I've been walking. So imagine the same way that you discover your own fractures, your own wedges, your own behavior, your own perceptions, that when you discover it for yourself that no one told you, you never lose it. That's a different type of freedom than me telling you, oh, that's probably an issue with your mama, and this is what you should do about that. That doesn't serve the person. So sometimes when you discover that for yourself, and so I discovered some things about myself because I looked at myself and I was like, oh, shoot, that's not the truth. That's my truth, but that's not the full truth. And when I was able to go investigate the other parts of the puzzle, guess what I discovered? Yeah, there was a whole other conversation that went on that Farron wasn't a part of, although Farron's mind made a decision or made up a story to fill in the blanks. You see, your brain is designed to fill in those blanks. That's why you can get in your car and jump on the freeway, because you've been on the freeway driving, so you know what to look for on a freeway. You can walk through any building because you know what to look for, a door, a hallway, right? Because those perception patterns are stored in there. You put your foot on the brake when you see brake lights in front of you to slow the car down so you don't run into the back of the car to prevent an accident. But you were taught that in driving. Now we do it automatically. I drive my Z, I can eat a burger, talk on the phone, and shift gears and drive with my leg and hit the brakes all at the same time. That's how powerful the brain is, the perception patterns and the memory patterns and the action patterns. So when you understand that level of brain science and you understand that and you are willing to apply that to your life, I discovered, my goodness, I have been resisting a few things in life that matter to me. And what I say, it mattered to me because those are things that my mind has been focused on. See, everything doesn't matter the same to everybody. So you got to give people the space to figure out what matters to them. It may not be the same thing that matters to you. Your children might have things that matter to them that don't matter to you. You might have things that matter to you that the people in your life that don't matter to them. So where do we get the freedom to deal with or address the things that matter to us? And sometimes as children, there's things that matter to us that we don't get to say that matter to us because we grew up in an environment that's children are seen and not heard. That conversation doesn't work today. It didn't work back then, if you tell the truth. You know, we learned to live with it, and yeah, we came out all right for the most part. But there were things that children need to be heard and seen because it matters to that child. See, because the child's brain is developing. The child's brain is giving meaning to life even at that young age. And if we don't give that child the information that that child needs in that child's frame of mind, then that child will walk away and fill up their mind with something else. Because the brain is designed to make it mean something to survive, especially if it's a negative context. If it's a negative experience, a disempowering conversation. So when I looked at what have I been resisting, the biggest thing that stood out the most was I was resisting grief. I had been resisting grief for 6 years of my dad passing. Now, we know that there's a grief process. We shouts out to Jessica. We did a talk on Beyond 2D. You can go there and check those 3 years of talks there. And one of those was around grief. We did 4 episodes on grief. And yes, we know that medically, mental health classes, hey, there's conversations about how to manage with grief, how to manage grief. There's different phases, and we all end up in different phases of grief. The grief conversation is so important. After I've been in my grief, I could see why people sometimes act the way that they act in life with such a short temper or such a disconnection, because I know what that felt like to have my dad pass away. My grandma was tough, 10 years. Took me 6 years for my dad to get to where I'm at today. But the ability to look at what I've been resisting and the key part of that conversation was, and you probably heard people say this, oh, that's just life. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, right? Well, guess what? There's another part of that conversation that we leave out, that's just the way it is, and that's just the way it isn't. And so sometimes in life, you got to be able to take a look at what's not. We always look at what is. Oh, what's this? What is this? But have you ever took a step back and looked to see what this is not? See, sometimes you got to go looking to see what it's not to see what it actually is. So I was able to go and look and see what this is not to get to see what this is. Because sometimes if you look and just see what it is, you don't get to see what it's not because you're focused on what it is. So life is the way it is and life is the way it isn't. And in completing that circle for me, I call it a circle, I was able to see that I was choosing grief the way it is. I was choosing grief around my dad the way it is. But I didn't choose grief the way it was and the way it wasn't. So I chose grief the way it is, but I hadn't chosen grief the way it isn't. And when I was able to choose grief the way it isn't and the way it is, there was a space. There was a space that I felt complete. Because I call it a full circle. You choose life the way it is and you choose life the way it isn't. But I had only been choosing life in certain aspects the way it is, not the way it isn't. I couldn't even see life the way it isn't. And the way that it is my dad is gone. And the way it isn't is that I don't want to believe that he's gone. So there's a battle. So resisting the way that it isn't and only seeing that the way it is, I was unstable. I was emotionally unstable. So can you imagine growing up as a child and you have things that matter to you that you want to express and you can't express it because you don't get the space to say it. So then you internalize it, and because I can't say it, there must be something wrong with me. So then I don't say anything, and then I become this quiet, shy person because I can't talk to the people who I care about, who say that they're important or they're important to me. But now I have to suppress my emotions and my thoughts and my feelings and my behavior. So then now I'm resisting who I am as a person. And then I choose life the way it is, which is upsetting. Or I can choose life that is not upsetting. So the moment I chose grief the way it is and the way it isn't around what mattered to me, which was my dad, in the grief conversation, there was a space that I was like, oh, wow. I feel whole. I could choose grief the way it is, and I could choose grief the way it isn't. And my experience is that grief doesn't have me anymore. Now I have the grief. See, sometimes you have to realize what you're holding on to before you can let it go. Sometimes you have to figure out what you're holding on to so that you can let it go. And in that exercise, choosing life the way it is and choosing life the way it isn't allowed me to look at the aspects of life that I'm choosing and I'm not choosing, that I'm resisting. And I chose grief the way it is and the way it isn't. I chose loss the way it is and the way it isn't. Now, loss and grief for some could be the same, but loss could also be relationship loss. It could be you lost your keys, it could have lost a car, your whatever you lost, whatever is a loss for you. Sometimes we don't choose the loss, and then our mind keeps focusing on the loss. So you're resisting letting it go. We say that, right? We describe it so much, but there are principles to apply a life that we can not resist things. And as soon as I resisted the loss and saw that I was resisting loss, and then I stopped not resisting the loss, I was able to be free from loss. And then I looked at that 14-year-old story about not being vulnerable. And that was probably third on the list. It was grief, loss, and then not being vulnerable. Those are my I would tell you right now in real time, those are probably my top 3 of what I've been resisting in life that matters to me. Because I want to be vulnerable. I wanted to be vulnerable. I wanted to be self-expressed in all areas of my life. But there were some areas that were suppressed because I couldn't be vulnerable in that experience, in that relationship. And it's not always romantic relationships either. We're not talking about always a girlfriend relationship, boyfriend. These are relationships, period. You see, being vulnerable was sprinkled in a lot of areas of my life. It just wasn't in that breakup from that one girlfriend that I made it mean in that moment at 14. Not being vulnerable was sprinkled in, I want to say, all the aspects of my life. So when I saw that I was resisting being vulnerable, because I wasn't resisting being not vulnerable. So I chose vulnerability the way it is, and I chose vulnerability the way it isn't. And in the moment that I chose being vulnerable the way it is and the way it isn't, that same space of peace, of experiencing being whole and complete. See, those are experiences. See, you can't do whole and complete. I mean, you can, but it's only going to be temporary. See, a lot of times we try to find people to fill the void of whole and complete. As we say, oh, that's my better half. She's my better half. He's my better half. We say it out of our mouth. But at what point do I become a whole person? Right? And so when I saw that and I chose being vulnerable the way it is and the way it isn't, there was a space, there was a glaze of peace that came over my mind, over my thoughts. And I was like, wow, I could actually be vulnerable. Like, it felt like now that I have vulnerable, it doesn't have me. So now I can choose to let vulnerable go, or I can hold on to not being vulnerable. See, I took vulnerability. So now it doesn't have me. Now, is it still there? Of course it's still there, but I have it. It doesn't have me. So I can let being go of being vulnerable or not being vulnerable by my choice. And if I don't want to be vulnerable in this moment, then I know what I'm going to get as an experience if I'm not being vulnerable. I already know who Farron's going to be when he's not vulnerable. It's all bad. But the moment that I chose being vulnerable the way it is and the way it isn't, the peace came over me. And then I saw, we had more conversations. And I've always, even this one here, I've been stuck. I've been in this education for 15 years, and I hadn't gotten this for myself until this session as well. So another piece of that was, who's responsible? Am I responsible for how I show up in life for you? Right? So how I show up in the world, am I responsible for that? Or do I just, I can't control how you see me, right? Now that's what we say. We say that I can't control, and that's partial. That's a true statement. You can't control how people see you, but you can't control how you show up. And so what I realized in that statement of made at 14 years old, I told myself I'm not going to be vulnerable, and I have to defend myself in relationships. Now, when I told myself I have to defend myself in relationships, that was another slash. That was another layer of the emotional pain. I'm not being vulnerable, and I have to defend myself. I made two decisions in that 14-year-old mindset in a breakup that I had no control, that I gave meaning to. She didn't say that. I said that. My mind presented that as a way to survive. my mind presented a way to survive that pain. I didn't even choose it. I didn't choose that. All I know was, and what did I even know about? What did I know at 14 about being vulnerable at 14? I had no idea no idea the definition of vulnerability at 14. All I know is how I felt, and my mind gave a meaning, and I'm not vulnerable, and I have to defend myself. So I would defend myself in relationships. I would get in relationships that I knew I shouldn't be in, and I would defend myself to stay. Oh, I can make it better. I can do this. No, give me another chance. I would defend myself, or I would walk away, still defending myself. And maybe she never wanted to break up with me, but because I defended myself and I'm not vulnerable, she was gonna leave. She had no choice. You see, I can admit that no woman had a chance with Farron, the 14-year-old kid version that was protecting him from relationships. My friends didn't have a chance. How could I make friends and I'm not vulnerable? See, because that was a peer age decision for me. In the education that I took, you make a decision about your mom, your dad, and your peer age. And once you make that peer age decision, which is your third decision, as a wrap. We have episodes, that go along, but some of those, there's three core decisions, not the small decisions, the fractures, the core fractures, the core three core ones. And so when I discovered that, and I got that piece, and then I saw that I defend myself in relationships, and then I saw the conversation that we were having of how do I occur for people? How do I land on people? Right? So I started looking at how do I land on people? For the most part, I'm pretty chill in my mind. I'm pretty chill. I don't cause no problems. I don't like arguing. Like, you can have it. I don't want no confrontation. I don't like chaos. I'm just like chill. Even though I had a military career there, that was a totally different type of lifestyle. You would think that. But I train for chaos. I don't like it. It's a part of my identity though. And so when I looked at that, and I was like, how do I occur for people? How do I land on people? And that's a different person, right? Because what I discovered was, if I defend myself in relationships, I'm defending my intentions. And so a lot of times in relationships, I'm right. I'm right and you're wrong, right? Right. However, if I'm right and you're wrong up against another human being, then I'm invalidating that other human being's experience, for one. For two, I'm also not listening to that person's emotional state or whatever they're trying to say, because I'm defending my position. I'm defending my intention. Right? We use that word in relationships a lot. What's your intentions? You know what? I didn't like that word either. I didn't even understand what my intentions are. I don't even know what that means. I wasn't at that layer of life yet. I wasn't at that level of the layer where that was at. So it's like, when I saw that I could actually take responsibility for how I land on people, it gave me another layer of vulnerability. Because it's like, oh, you mean to tell me that people could like me for my behavior, for my personality, for my character, and not my body language? Oh, they could like me for my body language, my character, my personality, but not my behavior? You mean people can like me for my personality, my character, and my behavior, but not my personality? Well, wait, how? So when I got that revelation and how I looked at myself and how I applied that to my life, I'm like, oh, that's true. Even in sports, we talk about, hey, look, the body language of a player. Keep your head up, keep your chin up. Don't you missed the shot. Like we see it in life. The body language. I could roll my eyes pretty. These big old eyes right here, I could roll my eyes real. You don't want to see me roll my eyes. I could roll my eyes. I got some good body language. Like I got body language, right? And sometimes that body language offends people, right? Because of how I roll my eyes at a conversation that they talking about. I just be like, man, you got to be kidding me. So when I got present to that in my heart, the lowercase YOU, then I could look at the capital YOU and say, well, what does that look like? If in my mind, in my soul is my mind, will, and emotions, then what does my spirit have to say about that? What does my mind say about that? Well, my mind is split. My mind is a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is where all those deep memories and thoughts are, where I have my meetings at, when I have to think about something, and that voice, when my mouth is closed and that voice is, I'll let you test it. Yeah, that voice that was talking while your mouth is closed, close your mouth. And when you talk, when you close your mouth, that voice you hear right there, that's not you. Right. So I had to hear that voice in my head that was so cynical. It was so judgmental. It has so many opinions about life, about myself. It had so much to say about who Farron was and is. That voice, that's my subconscious mind. It's designed to help me stay safe and protect myself and protect my feelings and emotions. So when I saw that in the class, my heart was softened because I was like, oh, well, wait a minute. I've been studying God's word for 6 years. I've been practicing the principles. I've been applying it to my life. I've got some freedom from the word. Well, then let me take a look. If this class says that I can be responsible for how I show up and land on people, then I'm actually responsible for how I occur to you. So I can how I occur to people is not on you, it's actually on me. So when I got that freedom and I was like, okay, you know what? I can see that. I can see how I could show up, and if I'm defending my intention, and in that space of me defending my intention, there's no love present. Well, that's because of me, not because of them, because I'm the one defending myself in this relationship. So if I'm defending myself and I'm invalidating that person, or I'm not listening to that person, or I'm judging that person, or I have opinions about that person, then guess what? Then I'm the one bringing that to the table, not them. So then I went back again. I said, well, what does the Bible have to say about that vulnerability? What is it to be vulnerable in the Bible? And so what's funny or not funny is I have been looking at James. I've been studying James. The epistle of James has just been such a phenomenal conversation. And also, I came into this season of life that I wanted patience. See, I wanted patience as a virtue. I have patience as a principle. Like I could be used by patience, and I could be patient right now. But patience as a virtue for me is get patience in my heart. See, I have frustration in my heart. I have upset in my heart. I have all those other disempowering contexts in my heart, but I didn't have patience in my heart as a who I get to be as patience. And so I came into this season of life and I wanted patience as a virtue. Like I want to swim in patience. I want to swim like I'm in the ocean of patience. And yeah, I could see upset over there bobbing in the water. I could see disappointment bobbing in the water. You know, but I wanted the ocean that I'm in to be patience, so I could choose to be upset, or I could choose to be disappointed as a choice. As a choice, or not. I could just be patient. And so when I looked at the word and the Holy Spirit, I can't say that I did it. The Holy Spirit led me to James chapter 5, verse 16. And it says, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And now I've heard that scripture many times. The fervent. We even talked about it on the prayer line, on the Bible study. Like, I've heard that. But it was in this moment, it was in that moment that I heard it for myself. That not only did I get the knowledge and the understanding, but I got comprehension from that scripture. And when I got the comprehension from it, I got a revelation about myself. And the revelation I got from myself was that is where vulnerability is. Because if I can confess my faults one to another, then I could be vulnerable. That takes a state of being vulnerable to come and confess my faults to you. Not you pointing out my faults, but me coming to you saying, hey, you know what? I didn't mean to say that to you like that the other day. Please forgive me. Can I make the correction? Can we talk about that again? And if I hurt you, please, that was not my intention to hurt you. It was actually me being righteous because I felt like I knew what I was talking about, and I may have invalidated your experience. And then you allow that person to say, yeah, you know what? You did hurt my feelings, right? You did hurt my feelings. And this is the problem about it for me, fellas. See, I never was able to do that. After that moment of me giving up being vulnerable, probably even before that, I always allow people to tell me how I hurt them. See, it's easy for me to come and say, man, you hurt my feelings, man. You know what? You hurt me when you said that. You disrespected me when you said that. You did this to me. You did this to me. See, as that's the part about we talk about as men. Have we ever had an opportunity to say, hey, you hurt my feelings when you said that, man? No, because we're not supposed to have hurt feelings as men. We're supposed to be tough. But hey, dad, you hurt my feelings when you said that. Hey, mom, you hurt my feelings when you said that. Hey, sister, you hurt my feelings. Hey, grandma. Hey, grandpa. Hey, uncle. Hey, cousin, you hurt my feelings when you said that. Now, the girls can say that because we say the women are emotional. But as men, as boys, we can't say that. Oh, you can't go by your feelings. Whatever that conversation is, that was the moment that I saw the freedom in the word that I could confess my faults because the word gives me strength. The world gives you opinions and a whole lot of other stuff, which is not right or wrong, good or bad. This is not a right or wrong, good or bad. This is you versus you, capital YOU versus lowercase YOU. And in the world, there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things said. There's a lot of emotional things going on in the world. But the word clearly says that if I confess my faults one to another and pray one for another, that ye may be healed, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And what that said to me was that I could actually go to people and take responsibility for how I land on them. I could actually go to people and be like, you know what? I didn't mean to say that to you like that. I could go to my mom. I could go to my friends. I could go to my daughters. I could go to people and be like, you know what? I didn't mean to say that like that. Because guess what? If I'm a Christ follower and I'm working on my eternal life and I'm living by these biblical principles, the part of that other than confessing your faults one to another, it says, and pray one for another. So here's the thing. I know prayer. I've gotten prayer as a principle. Prayer is an action word, right? So you hear people say, you don't want to block your blessings, right? Don't block your blessings, right? But imagine your prayer is like mail being delivered. And if you are not in the right heart posture and you go for ask God for to pray for something that you need, and you're aware that I have an ought with my brother or sister, then is my prayer going to get answered? No. Because as soon as I go to God and I pray, Satan and his devices are going to go to God. God, you cannot deliver that prayer to Farron because look, see, remember that? Look right there. Remember he said that to that person and he's knowingly not addressing it. You can't provide that prayer to Farron. So guess what? That prayer is blocked spiritually. That's why we do Communion Sunday and we go and ask for forgiveness before we take that communion, because we don't want to take that communion with the ought knowingly in your heart. Like, I know I got an attitude with you that we just got done fighting, and then I'm gonna go to God and hey, I need to pray for I need some money, I need something. No. Prayer is a principle. So when I realized that other part of that scripture, it's like, oh well, shoot, I can't go to God and ask for prayer for myself because I knowingly have an ought with you. So then I gotta go to you and clean it up. Even if I don't think I did anything to you. Even if I said something to you that I know is right. And I'm right. And I know I'm right. And I know you're wrong. But I could go back to you and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I said something to you that I didn't mean to say it that way. Maybe it was my behavior. Maybe it was my character. Maybe it was my personality. Maybe it was my body language. See, I could see that if one of those 4 things got in the way of that relationship conversation that had me land on you in a negative way, then I could be responsible for that behavior. I could be responsible for my character. I could be responsible for my personality. I could be responsible for my body language because I did roll my eyes at you because of what you said to me, because I was defending myself because I knew that I was right. And you were like, you see that? So that scripture, James 5:16, just gave me so much peace. It had me realize that in the word gives us strength. When we think that we're weak in our hearts, the word actually gives us strength. So when I got that, like I was already ready to be vulnerable from my personal development class because my heart was softened enough that I could see that how I land on people in life and how I occur for you is my responsibility. It's not on you. Yeah, I can't control how you think about me, but I can control how I land on you. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, well, shoot. And then I went to the scripture. So I got free. I got way more than being whole and complete that I got from the class, the development class, personal development class. But the word of God gave me freedom because I could see that I could confess my faults one to another. I don't have to defend myself no more. I could actually just go to people and be like, you know what? Please forgive me. I didn't mean to say that like that. And guess what, though? It doesn't mean that they're going to be like, oh, yeah, Farron, we're cool now. No. There might be some damage there. I have to be okay with that damage because asking for forgiveness doesn't mean the relationship is going to be okay. It doesn't mean that the relationship is going to even go back to the way it was. But what it does is it allows that person to have an opportunity to also self-reflect. And they don't have to forgive you. They could say, no, I don't forgive you, Farron. I don't forgive you. And I'm okay because I took responsibility for how I landed on that person. And if they never ever want to talk to me again, I'm okay with that because I'm not carrying it. And maybe one day their heart will soften and they'll realize that, oh, you know what? He really didn't mean no harm. Because I act like that too, right? So then when you self-examine yourself, then people are allowed to be who they are around you. But I didn't know that. That was 41 years of living not being vulnerable. So yes, just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean it's right to say something. Just because you're right doesn't mean that you're right. Especially when it comes up against another human being. We're not talking about math problems. We're not talking about stuff as an activity of life. We're talking about the experience of life. And the moment that I make myself righteous, and make you wrong, then there's no love present. Check it for yourself. You can't be right and have that person wrong and experience love between the two of you. It doesn't. You can't be right and invalidate another person's experience and expect it to be peace and love and kindness. Oh, it might be there temporarily because they're now pretending like everything is okay, but we can only pretend for so long to where it's going to be like, you know what? I can't take it no more. And then we blow up on each other and then we wonder why, what happened? Oh, well, you said something to me 5 years ago and I'm still carrying it. Oh, you said something to me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I ain't forgot it. And now I'm about to let you have it. And I'm not even like, what did I say 5 years ago? Oh. And if I tell the truth, I might remember that episode because maybe that was me being right. And I knowingly said something on purpose to hurt that or to disrupt that conversation. Purpose. You know, we say stuff on purpose to get your point across. So when I got that for myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm free. I'm free to be vulnerable. I can take responsibility for my bad behavior, for my attitude, for my body language, because the word gave me strength back. So how are you living your life? Are you living your life as your spirit, soul, and body, or is it your mind, body, and soul? How do you language that? I learned that biblically there's things that have to be in order. There's an order. And my order is spirit. I'm a spirit being. I possess a soul that has mind, will, and emotions in it, and I have a body. Now, some people may frame that however you frame it. It's not right or wrong, good or bad, however you frame it. But how you say it out of your mouth is going to be important because out of the mouth comes the issues of life, right? So then how you talk, how we describe life, it definitely is in a dance with how we behave and how we think about life. So I had to put things back in perspective. I had to put things back in order for myself to find peace that says I'm a spirit, I possess a soul, and I have a body. And inside my soul is my mind, will, and emotions. And if I tell the truth about those mind, will, and emotions, then I could actually go to work at those. Because it may not align with my spirit being. It may not align with the word, which clearly the word doesn't say nowhere to not be vulnerable. It doesn't say anywhere in that Bible to not be vulnerable. It actually says to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, and to love your neighbor with the same measure you love yourself. And if I'm being those, then I don't want to talk to you crazy. If I'm being those, I don't want to have attitude with you. I don't want to say something to you that makes you upset. If I'm being the biblical principles. Yeah, even even the landmark, even the personal development principles was enough to soften my heart to see that I could be a better human being. Right? That's me being a better human being, being vulnerable as a human being. So that was a breakthrough in my mind, will, and emotions. Now that those classes aren't going to save my soul, but it definitely allowed me to experience being a better human being. And for some, that's a start. For some, that's enough to soften the heart of a person to say, you know what, I do want to be a better person. I do. How can I be a better human being? There's work out there. There's classes out there. So going through all that has allowed me to experience freedom and being vulnerable because I can confess my faults. I can go to people and be like, I didn't mean to say that like that. And what that does is the quicker you do that, the quicker your life opens up. The quicker you go to someone that you know that you have an alt with is an opportunity for your life to open up. See, sometimes I would say stuff and I would let it go a year. I let it go 2 months. Now it's like, I don't let it go. Because the Holy Spirit now is like, remember? See, that's the reminder. He will remind you. He will remind you not just, about the word, but also about your behavior. Because that's the heart of us. He's guiding us to say, hey, you know what? Remember you said something to that person last week? Well, guess what? You need to, this is right now is the time for you to go clean it up. Oh, you want to clean it up today? Well, when you going to go clean it up? Because now I'm conscious. I'm resisting cleaning it up. I'm resisting going because now that my heart says, you know what? You said something wrong that day to that person and you need to go correct it. Now, I could be like, I ain't doing that. Forget them. He deserved that. He earned that talk. Or I could go and see how I land on that person and clean up that mess and allow them to maybe find some space. Or guess what? They may not even be worried about it. They might have forgotten about it, and you're the one carrying all the weight of that upset. You ever think about that? You ever think about that? You might be the one carrying that weight, and they've gone about their life. They don't even think about it no more. Or they have another perception of that episode that was like, whatever, that's just Farron, he crazy. That doesn't bother them. You see, that lives over here. It doesn't live out there. See, sometimes that energy that you pointing to is your own internal energy. It's not the outside forces energy. I know that's a tough conversation. But I've talked to people. I've healed with people that was like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. And I've healed with people that was like, yeah, I knew you, don't call me no more. You was crazy. So what is that? I just believe that energy that we point to outside of us is really coming from us. We're bringing that frustration. We're bringing that energy to the conversation. So if I'm bringing my attitude to the conversation, it doesn't matter what that person says or does. I'm listening to them with that attitude energy. Or I'm listening to them with compassion. I'm listening to them with humility. I'm listening to them from love, from kindness, or I'm listening to them from disrespect. I'm listening to them from frustration. And so that is where I found my freedom this month. Let me tell you, the ability to just be at peace with yourself in an area that you have been resisting for 41 years. I feel like a new person. I experienced life with vulnerability and freedom and peace and whole and complete around that aspect. Now, there's other aspects of life that are next. That's just the one layer. That's one layer of it. Have you even discovered just the first layer? Have you told the truth to yourself for just the first layer of it? Are you willing to tell the truth? Or do we do what we say as we suffer in silence? And we don't want you to suffer in silence. That's why your loved ones talk to you. That's why they say things to you to try to get you out of. That's why they try to fix you. But nobody needs to be fixed. Sometimes people just need to be heard. Sometimes we're trying to fix our children when the child just needs to be heard. Sometimes the fix is having love present. Sometimes the fix is you giving up your opinion about the situation and allowing that person to have their opinion about the situation. Sometimes it's just the ability to have your truth and my truth, but not about each other, but about the conversation. And that could be enough to alter the relationships in this world. Or could I say with ourself first, and then in our relationships, which become our community, which becomes our society, which becomes our nation. I'm not saying that this is the one all tell all, but imagine if we all just lived from that space. So the ministry that God has given me is to give up my opinion. I've had to give up my opinion about Farron not being vulnerable. That was an opinion about Farron that Farron had about Farron to survive a moment that Farron was in at 14. Giving up my opinion about myself first. And when I was willing to do that, it opened up other perceptions, other interpretations, and other perspectives of life that I couldn't see. And by confessing my faults and praying for one another, I get to work on my eternal life. Some people don't know to know about their eternal life. That's not even a conversation. So yeah, you versus you. It's a capital Y-O-U versus the lowercase y-o-u. And for me, that's my spirit, capital Y, and my subconscious mind, the lowercase y. Now, I'm not saying I don't have it all figured out. This is just a layer. This is just one layer that another layer that I peeled off that exposed myself to myself about myself. And now not being vulnerable doesn't have me. I have it. Now I can choose to let it go, or I can choose to hold on to not being vulnerable. At least I know now who I get to be when I'm free from it and when I'm holding on to it. And you don't have no say so in that, because I have it now. That power is not in another person. People don't get to keep me from being vulnerable or not being vulnerable. Now it's a choice or it's a decision. Because sometimes I don't need to be vulnerable. I mean, that's part of survival. But I know what I'm gonna get as an experience if I'm not being vulnerable, as an experience, not as an activity. Because I might be okay with the activity, but not the experience of it. See, we do a lot of things as activity wise, and then we suffer in silence in the experience of it, and we wonder, why do I act like that? Why do I treat people like that? Why did I say that like that? Where did that come from? It comes from the heart. the subconscious mind, the mind that's below, where you have your deep meanings with yourself at. So again, I appreciate you for listening in. I'm gonna play some PSAs because I haven't played none in the last hour and some change. So we're gonna come back. I'm gonna wrap up the conversation and get out of here. Again, I appreciate you for listening in. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. If you see that QR code right there, you can go there, donate to this organization. They are giving veterans a voice like myself. I have a lot of brothers and sisters at arms here who have their talk shows. They're finding their voices. They're expressing themselves. We have first responders, families, military family members here, sharing, being vulnerable. Might be a little bit of ego sometimes. Podcasting, I've learned, is a little bit of ego driven, which is not right or wrong or good or bad. Sometimes you need a little ego. Like, ego is not right or wrong. Pride, we need a sense of pride. It's when pride and ego are up against other people. That's what this whole talk has been about. Is when that pride and that ego is up against another human being. When my opinion is up against another human being, when I'm being righteous up against another human being, when I'm being wrong, right, up against another human being, is the experience of life that we're pointing to. That's what we discount. Some of us. I did. I still do. I'm working through it. I have an activity of life and I have experience of life. And I'm putting my spiritual conversation in front of it so that I can get back to the experience of life and how God says we're supposed to experience life versus what the world says, right? So if you spell world, W-O-R-L-D, and you take out the L, it spells word, W-O-R-D. So sometimes we're having worldly conversations and we're trying to put the word in it and it doesn't wash. And that's just a conversation to have. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the word or are we talking about the world? Because the world has a lot of opinions. The word has principles to be used by and to follow. Call them laws. We follow laws in the world. It's like I heard Dr. Miles. I heard Dr. Miles say this. Dr. Miles, I think he said, the stop sign. See, you're used by a stop sign. You stop. It says stop, you stop. You're used by a stop sign. You don't run the stop sign. Why? Because we've been taught and trained that if you run a stop sign, you could cause an accident. You could take a life. You could take a life. See the survival state of mind? The survival state of mind around a stop sign is we are trained, we are taught to drive and stop at a stop sign. 5 seconds. You're supposed to pull up to a stop sign and wait 5 seconds before you drive through. That's a safety to survive in case somebody runs a stop sign so that you can see if there are cars coming. So we're used by stop signs. I'm used by the word now. I've been getting the knowledge and the understanding and the comprehension to be used by it, by applying it to my life, for my revelation, for what the word has for me. And then I apply that wisdom and I'm used by it. And that's a different life experience. It goes against my previous perceptions, especially depending on when you came to Christ. If you didn't come to Christ like me until 49 or 49, I got more worldly conversations than I do spiritual. I can admit that. So I don't have it all figured out. But what I've applied to my life, what I've been used by from the word, I'm peeling off these layers. All right. This is the Farron Dozier Show on Military Broadcast Radio Network. You got any questions? FarronD.com, what I'm up to in the community. You can go there. For my sickle cell trait awareness is so important. WDCONSCT.org. I got link trees for all the different conversations where you can find me. Just Google my name at Farron Dozier and it'll pop up. It's out there. If you want to be a guest, you're more than welcome to be a guest on the show. I can have you come out and, have a conversation with me. It's easy. Don't be shy. All right. This is the front door. What else we got there? Oh, LBI Solutions. Shouts out to LBI Solutions. That is one of the curriculums that I actually am a trainer. We actually teach those foundation skills. Shouts out to Caldwell Williams, his goaltenders / LBI Solutions. He's been using that curriculum for 6 decades. He's 91, and I've been with him for 8 years. I've developed to be his curricular trainer, so we know that whenever he passes away, that I'm the one that's going to have an opportunity to continue that conversation on, right? And so you can go to LBI Solutions, right there. What else we got? IE Hounds. This is the basketball ministry I have, so you can go to iehounds.com. We just came from Arizona. Shouts out to the Hounds Way. 123 to 57 on Saturday, and then 179 to 103 on Sunday. We beat the Tucson Buckets and the Arizona Fire in those games this past weekend. Shouts out to them. Go there. A lot of information campaigns there if you want to brand with us. We're looking for sponsors always to cover some fees to help these players chase this hoop dream and help them also go through our curriculum to figure out what's next. Because look, check this out. Even as a basketball player in sports, in the military, we're not different. The uniform of an athlete and the uniform of a veteran soldier, not different. Especially if you've been playing basketball or sports since you were a child. That the identity can be trapped in that jersey. The same way it can be trapped in our uniform or in our rank. And then we see what happens in the lives of our athletes. We see what happens in the lives of our veterans. So is it just veterans? No. This is a human being conversation. These are people's lives at stake that we're talking about. And some people's hearts are so hardened that they can't hear this conversation. This is just the way it is. No, it's just the way it is, and it's just the way it isn't. And sometimes you got to know what you're holding on to before you can let it go. Appreciate you. Here's some PSAs, and then I'm going to be out of here. Shout us out. What's the count? This is Farron from the Farron Dozier Show, 8 p.m. Pacific time on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 a.m. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website, the station that leaves no listener behind, and MBR Radio. That's right, MBR Radio on all their streaming platforms, including MBR Radio on Roku TV, Sunday nights live, 8 p.m. Pacific time on KCAA Radio and MBRradio.us. The Farron Dozier Show. For more information, search farrond.com. Zetovia salve, made from natural and organic ingredients, good for inflammation, poor circulation, hemorrhoids, yeast infection, lip sores, dry coughs, eye pain, minor cuts and bruises, and ready to purchase at botanicaherbalco.com. 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 Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit WDCONSCT.org. Tune in to the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Brought to you by Sports Collective TV, Sports Collective Radio, and Sports Collective Media. We got the Heme Factor, we got In the Zone, and we got Fourth Down and the 20-second Timeout Sports segment. All for you right here on the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 a.m. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website with my guest hosts Robert Lamar and Coach Will. Catch us on Sports Collective Media on Instagram and Facebook. And make sure you watch us Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on KCA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website. Music, talk, sports, and so much more. The Farron Dozier Show. All right, welcome back to the Farron Dozier Show. You know what? I wanted to end the show with this. I titled this episode, You versus You, Clean Up Your Past. And what I've shared with this episode is that's how you can clean up your past, right? Because guess what? People still see Farron, the old Farron, right? So just because I've done this work and I've take responsibility for my past and I've cleaned up my life as I'm going through these journeys of these healing processes, I'm using the Word of God, I'm transforming my life, I'm working on my eternal life. But guess what? There are still some people that when they see Farron, they see the old person. They don't even think about who I am today. And this is a real life story. So in education, it taught us, hey, you know what? At some point, as you clean up your life, your worlds are going to collide, right? And I'm like, what do you mean we're going to collide? Because the example was, if I'm a speaker now, right? So I speak at church, I speak for sickle cell trait awareness, I speak on a lot of different conversations. Imagine I go to a session to speak somewhere and there's someone in the audience who knows me from my past. What do you think that conversation is going to be about? It's not going to be about what I'm talking about today. It's going to be about, I remember Farron, the player. I remember he did this. He was doing this. He did this. He left us with the unit all messed up because he was depressed. All that stuff that I know I'm responsible for, right? And so I did. When I left the unit, before I retired, I was depressed. I was in a very bad state. So I knew that there was some paperwork that I didn't take care of. I knew there was things that I lacked, because it was like every time that phone rang, my nerves would just like, this is my call. This is the phone call that's going to be the end of my career. Now, can you imagine going to work every day thinking that every time that phone rings, when you pick it up, it's the medical board, it's the discharge, it's the board saying that your career is over. That's how I answered the phone when I made it mean that my life was over, when that medical board process started. So did I take care of business? No, I didn't. And so I speak at Camp Roberts. I happen to go to Camp Roberts to speak, and I walk into the class, and guess what? One of my old soldiers from 2005 was in the room. And I said, oh my God, this is what they told me about. So I had two choices. I was either just going to ignore the fact of how I was and my past experiences with this person, or I was going to acknowledge this person and take responsibility for how I landed on them in my career. And so I went up to the front of the class, introduced myself, and I said, by the way, before I get started, I see one of my old soldiers in the class here, and I would like for you to please stand up. And they stood up. And I said, I just want to say thank you for the great times that we had serving together. I was your platoon sergeant during this time frame. And I just want to say, thank you for allowing me to just be a part of that experience for you. Also, I know that when I transitioned out of the service, that there was some things that I have probably did or said that just wasn't, who I was at the time. And I just want to take responsibility and ask you if I've said anything or did anything to offend you or to hurt you or to whatever, that I felt like I could have done to you, that you feel like I could have done to you. I'm asking you publicly to forgive me. And the person acknowledged, said, we're good. I forgive you. We're good. Whatever they said. Now, what that does is two things. It allowed me to start my presentation and maybe allow that person to now hear me from today's conversation, not from what he was thinking about in the past. It also shifts how, if anybody else from that era ask him, or he brings it up that he saw me, or they ask, have you seen Sergeant D? Talk to Sergeant D? What is he going to say? What is going to come out of his mouth? Either he's not going to say anything about that episode between he and I, or he's going to say, you know what, man, I saw Sergeant D at Camp Roberts, man, at the schoolhouse I was at, and he asked me for forgiveness. Now, that could plant the seed to alter who Farron is in his life and the next person's life that know me as a soldier. Do you see the power of forgiveness? It's not just forgiving yourself, but it's the forgiveness from you to another person, and then from other to others. Do you see that? That's how powerful forgiveness is, and we don't talk about that. Yes, forgiveness is for me, yes, but it's also a seed planted for that person to now think from. But it also passes that seed to the next person when they talk about Farron. It may not be the same day. It could be 2 years from now that they say, oh, I talked to Farron, and you know what? Yeah, he asked me for forgiveness. That's a different experience. And some people will always see Farron for the old Farron, and I'm okay with that. It's in my book. It's in my 10 inspirational reads, whatever. It's a good story. Tell me your story. Tell me what you heard. I have nothing to defend. I'm not triggered by my past because I own it. I took responsibility. I know that I've hurt people. I'm not proud of it, but I know that I've sabotaged relationships. I know that. I've hurt myself. And now we spend time doing damage control. And when the opportunity is to clean up the damage, you clean it up. You don't sit in the pride unless that's the life that you want for yourself. I appreciate you for listening in today. Thank you again. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. As you heard, catch me Sunday nights on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 2:50 AM. And again here Wednesday nights, 4 p.m. Pacific time. FarronD.com. Oh, at Farron Dozier right here. If you want to be a guest, you want to talk to me, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that is right there at Farron Dozier, retired Army Sergeant First Class. Again, appreciate the Military Broadcast Radio Network. The end of the year is coming up, so, you know, life is happening. I appreciate you all for today's episode, and I'm out of here. Shout us out. What's the count?
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.